Gentlemen, and let me also greet all the viewers and listeners to this press conference. You will see the Deputy Minister and I today are wearing dark ties, which for us is part of our symbolizing our solidarity in the struggle against gender-based violence and with the victims of gender-based violence, and also our solidarity, sympathy with all those who have perished as a result of COVID-19. COVID-19 has left no sector in our country and the world unaffected, and its consequences will be felt for years to come. This pandemic, which has created a new normal for the entire country, had a huge impact on the post-school education and training sector and has affected the 2020 academic year and demanded of us that we adopt new ways of offering learning and teaching and all other mandates of the post-school education and training system. I remain grateful by the commitment of all the members of the Ministerial Task Team on COVID-19, which was chaired by our Deputy Minister, who contributed significantly to us saving the academic year and saving lives. I therefore would like to salute our Deputy Minister, Bhuti Manamela, as well as our key stakeholders such as the South African College Principal Organization, Universities South Africa, labor unions, SAUS, the students, and SAVETSA now, your TVET College Student Association, other student political organizations, public servants, and all the public and private institutions who made a contribution to us saving the academic year and saving lives, including, of course, our own health and wellness entity, Higher Health. Equally, I want to acknowledge the leadership role of President Cyril Ramaphosa, my cabinet colleagues, and the National Coronavirus Command Council and cabinet itself, who have guided the entire COVID-19 response process. At all material times, our measures continue to be guided by the strategic logic of the National COVID-19 Risk-Adjusted Strategy, and we committed ourselves to ensuring that no student is left behind and that all of our post-school education and training institutions are safe. On Higher Health and the management of COVID-19, Higher Health, as the Health and Wellness Implementing Agency of the Department of Higher Education and Training, has been supporting our responses to COVID-19 across the sector, right from lockdown level 5 till now. Working with other experts, scientists, and stakeholders, especially the World Health Organization, the National Institute for Communicable Diseases, our sister Department of Health, and other agencies, Higher Health has built comprehensive programs, systems, controls, and infrastructure. This has been done through the establishment of guidelines, protocols, and capacity building that are grounded in science and the latest epidemiological data. The inevitable reality of COVID-19 pandemic and its associated mortality continues to loom around the sector, warranting continuous strengthening of systems, controls, and management of the pandemic in the sector. Let me now engage on the recent few cluster outbreaks that we have been experiencing over the last few weeks in several institutions in the Eastern Cape and KwaZulu-Natal. To address these COVID-19 outbreaks, Higher Health, along with our leadership from institutions, have assembled a multidisciplinary investigation team, which also includes members of the WHO, the World Health Organization, the Health Department, the National Health Laboratory Service, to manage and contain the outbreaks through early identification of infected students and staff, identifying their contacts and appropriately assisting them with early isolation and quarantine to break the chain and further spread of the infection. Furthermore, we successfully negotiated with the National Health Laboratory Service to reduce the confirmation time for results, which is very important. In the past few weeks since the outbreak, over 600 students and staff have been tested, and those who tested positive have been isolated or admitted to quarantine and health facilities. Contacts have also been isolated and given the necessary support. The cluster investigation teams have responded to the outbreaks in an exemplary manner, and this has resulted in having few to no new cases in the last week. However, we do anticipate more cluster outbreaks across other provinces and institutions, and I appeal to students and staff to stick to preventative measures, including wearing of masks, proper hand washing, avoiding handshaking. Personally, I'm observing that many people have forgotten about this. It looks like people now are just ordinarily shaking hands with each other. What's the point of saying clean your hands regularly when also you are back to shaking hands instead of using the elbow to greet each other? It's very important that we remind ourselves of this and also to maintain physical distance. I once again call upon every student to use the toll-free number 0800 36 36 36 anytime during the day or night, and they must know that they are not alone in these challenging times if they are experiencing stresses. On gender-based violence, in response to the President's call for civic activism in dealing with gender-based violence and femicide, I released the policy framework to address gender-based violence in the post-school education and training system this year. This policy is a response to continued gender-based violence in colleges and universities, leading to violent incidents, depression on the part of victims, their families and friends, including loss of lives. In 2019, I also appointed a ministerial task team to advise me on matters of sexual harassment and gender-based violence and harm at our institutions. The task team recently held 4 virtual engagements with stakeholders within the university sector. The input of these workshops will provide a valuable basis for finalizing the work of the ministerial task team on universities specifically. I therefore expect the report by the end of the current financial year. There is a broader framework that we have adopted which is guiding the sector as a whole, including TVET colleges and other institutions in our sector. Equally important, as we are now in the 16 days of activism against gender-based violence against women, children, and people with disabilities, my department, in conjunction with Higher Health and stakeholders, will be rolling out gender-based awareness campaigns throughout our institutions and communities. The detailed plans will be communicated in due course. As the intellectual resource for our country, we also call upon our entire post-school education and training sector.
All right, the Minister there, Higher Education, Science and Innovation, Dr. Blade Nzimande.
And other studies to better inform our country's strategies in dealing with this pandemic. So our institutions have got an added responsibility given what they are as intellectual resources of our country. On the National Student Financial Aid Scheme, which is the next issue I would like to deal with, on the laptop or gadgets project, following the previous tender that had to be cancelled due to all bidders not meeting the requirements, the new laptop tender was advertised on the 4th of September 2020, with the closing date being the 21st of September 2020. By the closing date of the tender on the 21st of September, a total of 140 bid proposals were received. All 140 bid proposals were evaluated by the NSFAS bid evaluation and adjudication committees between the 22nd of September 2020 and the 13th of October. I'm happy to announce that the NSFAS Administrator, Dr. Randall Carlson, subsequently approved the tender award on the 2nd of November to 5 bidders, which will work with NSFAS and our institutions in the delivery of laptops to our students. NSFAS has communicated the award to the successful service providers on the 2nd of November 2020. At the moment, NSFAS is in the process of completing the contractual arrangements with all successful service providers, following which the details of the final mutually agreed guidelines will be communicated to all institutions. This will then lead to institutions commencing with the procurement of laptops required by the NSFAS funded students. NSFAS has published the award details together with the list of unsuccessful bidders in the National Treasury e-tender portal and the NSFAS website. The publication of the tender award was published in the government tender bulletin on the 13th of November 2020. I therefore would like to thank NSFAS for finalizing this process and to congratulate all the companies who were appointed. But given that the procurement process has been concluded much later than originally planned, the laptops will now only be distributed in the new academic year, which will now also assist us to deal with severe financial challenges faced by NSFAS, as we will explain below. The delay in providing these laptops is regrettable, and I wish to apologize to all affected. And I want to assure the students in particular that it was not an intention to have this delay, but it was very important to ensure that the procurement processes were followed strictly and to the rules, according to the rules. I also wish to take this opportunity to sincerely and warmly thank Dr. Randall Carlson, the administrator of NSFAS over the last 29 months, for having done a great job in turning the organization around, as his tenure now comes to an end at the end of December next month, 2020. Despite many challenges, NSFAS is a much better entity now than it was when you took over, Dr. Carlson. We should express our appreciation to you in this regard. On the N+2 rule appeals, in June 2020, after having been inundated with requests and objections from students regarding the N+ rule, which is the funding policy of NSFAS, a preliminary investigation conducted by NSFAS showed that there were potentially 29,000 students who were affected by the N+ rule. What is the N+ rule, to remind ourselves? The N+ rule is a rule which says if you are a NSFAS beneficiary, you cannot do a degree or a diploma meant for so, or a certificate meant for so many years beyond a certain number of years. At the moment, we are saying if you are doing a 3-year degree, we can only allow you to finish it within 4 years. So a 4-year degree in 5 years. If previously it was N+2, which allowed you to do a diploma of 3 years in 5 years. Now this is the N, what we call the N+ rule. The investigation in this regard revealed that the majority of these students who had been excluded as a result of having gone beyond the number of the maximum years allowed had exceeded due to medical reasons, while some others have exceeded, but because they are currently in their final year of study, they had to be accommodated. So we said there will be exemptions as a result of these realities, that some, it was because of medical reasons that they delayed. Others were final year students who we said we need just to ensure they are allowed to complete so that they are able to be out of the institutions. A total of 9,541 N+2, the old system, review appeals, that is the system before 2018, were received, 9,541, with 8,761 review appeals approved and 780 rejected for various legitimate reasons. This is the latest update of those students who were excluded because of this rule. They've successfully appealed the overwhelming majority, and we are therefore urging all our institutions to urgently communicate the appeal decisions to all affected students. NSFAS must also ensure continuous follow-up with all of our institutions to ensure that students are always notified on the outcomes of their appeals. On NSFAS application cycle, to date, NSFAS has received a total of 648,000 applications for 2021, of which over 69% applications are from females, with males accounting for 31%. Concurrently, we have received a very high volume of applications from SASSA beneficiaries, amounting to 330, as a result of our Memorandum of Understanding with the Department of Social Development. KwaZulu-Natal continues to dominate with the highest number of applications as compared to other provinces, accounting to date for 157,252 applications, which is 27%. 27% of all applications come from KwaZulu-Natal, followed by Gauteng with 20% and Limpopo with 16%. Applications from the Western Cape and Northern Cape remain below expectation. We're concerned about this. We expect, however, this number to increase quite substantially, as past experience has shown that it is in the last 2 weeks of the application cycle when some students tend to apply in greater numbers. Rough estimates suggest that there will be over 800,000 new applications for the 2021 application cycle by the closing date at the end of this month, November. This increase also is as a result of retrenchments and loss of jobs due to, or income due to COVID-19. However, we remain deeply concerned at the slow and low rate of applications from students with disabilities. And I would like to urge them to use this opportunity and apply for a fully comprehensive bursary funding for additional resources so that they are able to cope better. As the closing date is looming, NSFAS has embarked on an intensified outreach program, visiting communities across the country to assist applicants who have not yet applied for funding. I would like to thank the Department of Basic Education and the National Youth Development Agency for availing their centers to be used as NSFAS application centers. These centers will remain fully functional until the closing date of the 2021 application cycle, which I have said, as I have said, is 30th of November 2020. Let me say something about universities, the situation in our universities. Saving the academic year and the extended academic year. The COVID-19 pandemic and the national lockdown caused serious disruption to all facets of university operations, including their teaching and learning and research and engagement programs. Universities and their staff and students responded positively, although at different places, depending on each institutional circumstance. We've been closely monitoring the situation across all universities, and I'm pleased to say that as of the 13th of November, the vast majority of institutions, that is 25, are at low risk of not completing the academic year. I want to assure South Africans that all our universities are fully committed to complete the 2020 academic year by mid-March 2021. 25 universities are set to start the 2021 academic year at the end of March 2021, and one university will start in April next year. This aligns well with the release of the Basic Education National Senior Certificate results, which are expected to be released on the 23rd of February 2021. So there have been close alignments between ourselves and the Department of Basic Education. Despite the crisis that COVID-19 caused, valuable lessons have been learned. We have again been starkly reminded of the high levels of inequality that prevail in South Africa generally, as well as in higher education. Better to relatively better developed universities have generally been able to navigate these severe operating challenges with less difficulties than your historically disadvantaged, which in the past were black universities. We have sought to structure the COVID-19 support interventions in the sector in order to provide aggressive support for especially the historically disadvantaged institutions. It is illuminating, however, to note that a number of universities are pointing to better student performance in comparison to previous years. We have interrogated the reasons for this performance and found multiple contributory factors. So there's good news in all this cloud. Although more careful assessment across all teaching and learning parameters must still be done, especially after the completion of the 2020 academic year, initial research indicates positive impact in many cases in respect of one, the multimodal blended approach to teaching and learning. It's proving that it has worked in improving results. The second factor is opportunities provided to students to learn in different ways, more flexibly and at their own pace. In other words, the new teaching methodologies we introduced in response to COVID-19 have proven to have had a positive impact. The third factor has been the multiple assessment methods that have had to be used as a result of students not being on campus and also using multimodal teaching and learning methods. It is clear that from this, the one lesson we can learn out of this, that blended means you mix online and physical delivery or use or contact. That this blended and multimodal learning, including digital and online learning, must become a standard part for the future higher education system. That's the lesson we are learning. In this regard, I intend next year to set up a ministerial task team to help us develop strategies to make online learning a permanent feature and a reality in our sector. However, we must also immediately point out that a significant number of students, especially those at historically black universities and campuses, and those living in working class and poor communities, have struggled to access digital platforms because of lack of devices, connectivity, and other family household circumstances. It is clear that the class and spatial legacies of the past are continuing to impair the ability of many of our students to fully take advantage of learning opportunities under the COVID-19 threat. However, I would also like to take this opportunity to thank the Council for Scientific and Industrial Research, which is one of my entities, for the very important initial work it has undertaken to track student access to connectivity in their homes where they stay. Very interesting, incomplete, but very important start in terms of just trying to find out where our students are staying and what's the level of connectivity. The good news out of this exercise was to confirm that more than 90% of our country at least has got 3G connectivity. So we know the challenge that still is outstanding. On tuition and accommodation fees, I would like to remind everyone that on the 5th of October 2020, I released directions in the Government Gazette to provide a framework for tuition and accommodation fees in the university sector for the 2020 academic year. Students who are staying in university-owned, managed or leased accommodation will not have to pay any additional accommodation fees as indicated in the Gazette, those who are staying in university-owned accommodation. However, I am aware that there may be additional costs for some students in respect of private accommodation allowances. In this regard, we urge all private accommodation providers to work within this national framework that I promulgated as provided for in the Government Gazette, and I request that wherever possible, universities assist students in negotiating with private providers on this matter. I urge that we all work together to find the best possible solution of supporting our students to effectively complete the academic year within the budgetary constraints we face as a country and within our sector. That is what I was referring to earlier on the issue of the gadgets that we are going to be issuing them in the new academic year. Because that also helps us coincidentally to have some resources for this transition into finishing the 2020 academic year in 2021. Institutions are busy considering the issue of residential free rebates following the non-occupation of some residences by students over a period of time. Universities will directly engage affected students in this regard. That's why we always urge stakeholders. A lot of work lies at institutional level, and we encourage engagement at that level. On another related but equally important matter, we've also been working towards a policy framework for regulating university fees. However, this process was not completed for the 2021 academic year due to the uncertainty caused by COVID-19 pandemic. We have therefore proposed a further fee compact or agreement with public universities, continuing what has been in place for the past few years. The intention of these fee compacts is to ensure that fee increases are kept at affordable levels, whilst also ensuring that universities are able to remain sustainable. I have written to all university councils with a proposal for a CPI-linked fee increase for 2021. This would be 4.7% increase on tuition fees and 6.7% on accommodation fees, in line with previous years. That's what I have proposed, that not more than 4.7% increase on fees, tuition fees, and not more than 6.7% increase on accommodation. Accommodation is always slightly higher because the issue of accommodation is affected by the property market. So it's very different. I am awaiting the response of university councils on this matter. In relation to the modeling of possible costs for the extended academic year 2020, in respect of NSFAS funded students, we now have determined the financial implications relating to the extension because we have further information about the academic calendars of the universities. Sorry. Yes, cheers for this information that we now have, which I'm about to talk about. We now know that two universities, University of Johannesburg and University of Pretoria, plan to complete the 2020 academic year during this month. And in fact, UJ has completed in terms of the stellenbosch information. 8 universities, which is Cape Peninsula University of Technology, Saltblight University in Kimberley, Stellenbosch University, University of Cape Town, University of the Free State, UNISA, University of the Western Cape at WITS, plan to complete in December 2020, their academic year. 3 universities, which is Northwest University, Rhodes University, and University of Mpumalanga, are planning to complete in January 2021. And 9 universities, which is Central University of Technology in the Free State, Durban University of Technology, Mangosuthu University of Technology, Nelson Mandela University, University of KwaZulu-Natal, University of Limpopo, University of Venda, University of Zululand, and the Vaal University of Technology plan to finish their academic year in February 2021. And 4 universities, Sfako Makgato University, Tshwane University of Technology, University of Fort Hare, and Walter Sisulu University plan to finish their academic year in March 2021. Should, however, be noted that given the difficult fiscal situation in our country, no additional funding was provided to the National Student Financial Aid Scheme, NSFAS, to support the payment of additional extended year allowances. This is a challenge we are sharing with the country, frankly and honestly, that we are facing. We therefore requested NSFAS to identify funds to support the extended academic year from existing funds, not additional funds. This was done within the existing allocations to the entity, and taking note of the crucial fact that there has been a significant increase in the number of university students qualifying for NSFAS funding in 2020. NSFAS therefore identified some funding, fortunately, to support the extended academic year, and I am pleased to indicate that additional living allowances to cover meals and personal expenses will be made available for those qualifying university students who require additional months to complete their academic year. Can I repeat this? NSFAS, I'm pleased to indicate that it has managed to identify additional funding for living allowances to cover meals and personal expenses for those students who are going to be completed beyond this academic year. And please, this money is only for meals and personal expenses, not for other things that I shall not name. We urge our students to spend this money wisely and responsibly, because it's their future. You spend it wrongly, you destroy your future easily. I wish to stress that this is also not a blanket support, where students who have completed their academic year will want something. Those students who have completed their academic year are not going to get any allowances until they start the new academic year next year. So this is only meant for students that are completing the academic year beyond this year. NSFAS will work closely with universities to identify the students affected and the extended time for each student that requires support. Universities will have to provide this necessary information to NSFAS to enable the allowances to be expeditiously processed. On TVET colleges, the start of the 2021 academic year for TVET colleges will delay by 3 weeks than normal, with returning students reporting to campuses on the 25th of January next year. The situation is as a result of having the 2020 exams continuing until the 11th of December this year at TVET colleges, with the colleges only closing on the 15th of December. The marking, moderation and results processing will thus go into January 2021, affecting the usual release of the results. However, I must indicate that this arrangement is carefully considered and will not affect the 2021 academic year. Enrollment for the grade 12 learners in 2021, this is very important, the ones who are writing now. The department has had engagements with the NSFAS and South African College Principals Organization regarding the implication of the late release of the grade 12 class of 2020 on registration for the 2021 academic year. Following these engagements, it was concluded that the release of matric results in February 2021 does not necessitate an amendment of the 2021 academic calendar for TVET colleges, as this will only affect students who would like to enroll for what we call the Report 191N programs. So this is sorted out, no need for anxiety. On community education and training, we've provided the community education and training colleges with an enrollment plan and the 2021 academic calendar, which is aligned to that of the mainstream public school system. to ensure accessibility, as the majority of community learning centers are hosted at public schools. As with the Department of Basic Education calendar, there will be a slight delay in the start of the academic year next year. However, the college staff will return earlier to ensure a smooth start. And tuition at our community education and training colleges is scheduled to start on the 27th of January 2021, as the department will continue to monitor and provide the necessary support, including in managing the effect of COVID-19. On our skills development branch, I am pleased to report that there is also a positive indication that our skills development activities will resume, including artisanal activities such as trade testing. For the financial year ending 31st of March 2021, unfortunately, we have observed decreased estimate from the skills levy collections. In fact, it's huge decline from what was expected to be 19.4 billion rands income into the skills levy, which will be down to 11.2 billion rand, a reduction of 8.1 billion. This is not good news at all for skills training, especially for our young people. This was, of course, as part of the tax relief measures to employers. The implications of this revenue decline resulted in us revising down our targets for the current financial year, especially regarding the workplace-based learning opportunities such as learnerships and apprenticeships, which are important in keeping young people engaged in some form of socio-economic activities. We'll be reviewing our SETA grant regulations so that we reflect the contemporary challenges and opportunities, especially as ushered by the President's announced economic restructuring and recovery plan. On infrastructure in the post-school education and training sector, while significant investments have been made in the provision of infrastructure in our sector, it is our considered view that the fragmentations that have been there over the years in relation to infrastructure support for universities, TVET, and community colleges were not desirable. I therefore have tasked the planning branch in my department to coordinate infrastructure provision throughout the post-schooling education and training sector, including the student housing infrastructure program that we have been managing with the DBSA. And cheers to the planning branch for its new responsibilities. I am also in the process of appointing members of the ministerial, I have appointed them actually, I'll announce this at the end, of what I call Ministerial Advisory Committee on Infrastructure. Today we are also doing another very important announcement with this press briefing. Today I'm launching the national list of occupations that are in high demand in South Africa. The list reflects the work undertaken by the Department of Higher Education and Training through its Labour Market Intelligence Research Project to support human resources development in our country. It's a very important matter, this. The list is updated every 2 years. Which skills are we short of in South Africa? Very important. As this is an important step towards helping us understand better the needs of the labour market and signals opportunities where our students and graduates are likely to stand a better chance of finding employment. The list is based on a thorough review of international good practice and information about global occupations in high demand, in addition to the use of a range of statistics for the compilation of this list. We had broad as well as deep stakeholder engagements regarding which occupations are in high demand. I would really like to thank all the organizations, both public and private, our social partners, and our researchers and our international partners for supporting the DHET to produce a credible, evidence-based, and well-validated list of occupations in high demand. This list tells us, and we urge every stakeholder, everybody, to study this list, because it tells us which occupations are likely to have such vacancies and which occupations are likely to grow due to new investments, especially by government. This list of critical skills identified that 345 occupations are in high demand in our country, out of a total of 1,500 that are registered in our organizing framework for occupations. These occupations are at both high as well as intermediate skills levels. Many of the occupations on the list can be associated with key areas and sectors identified as crucial for the reconstruction and recovery plan as announced by the President. For instance, it includes the following as critical skills that we are short of. In the digital economy, in energy, there is a whole lot of shortage of skills for energy. In infrastructure development, manufacturing, tourism, and agriculture, we are short of data scientists, web developers, computer network technicians, electrical engineers, concentrated solar power process controllers, mechatronic technicians, tool makers, gaming workers, crop produce analysts, agricultural scientists, just to name but a few. These will all be listed in this critical list that we are releasing today. It will be on our website. In launching the 2020 National List of Occupations in High Demand, I call upon our universities, our TVET colleges, and private education and training institutions, as well as other training providers, to use this list to inform their selection of program offerings, their resource allocations and enrollment planning processes, as well as the identification and development of new qualifications and programs that are more responsive to the needs of the economy and society as a whole. I also hope that students will look into this, because we still have a problem in South Africa. Too many students rushing to courses that are to programs that we are not short of in South Africa, that are oversubscribed. And that is just breeding unemployment. And we are still, by the way, spending a good percentage of NSFAS money to support students who are not going to get jobs at the end of the day because they are in areas that are not in high demand. So, students also need to look at this list. I'm also hoping that those of you involved in the provision of career development and information services will use this list to guide young people about possible career opportunities. The list is only one of several elements in our skills planning arsenal. As a department, we have also researched and identified those occupations that may require skilled personnel to be recruited from outside South Africa. And this list will be shared with the Minister of Home Affairs, who will consider it for possible adoption and gazetting. It's very important, this, because for us as a country, it's not correct to be just actually accepting people from outside with the skills that we have in the country. No country does that. But for those coming from outside with skills that we do not have, we welcome them, of course, because we need these skills in the country. That's why we share this with the Department of Home Affairs, so that it's able to guide Home Affairs when they are getting applications for visas and other things to our country. Now let me end by making some quick but very important announcements today. I am pleased to inform you today that I have appointed the 13 ordinary members team of the new NSFAS board in accordance with the criteria prescribed in the NSFAS Act for a period of 4 years. We will be releasing the names of these 13 members, but I'm appointing Mr. Ernest Kosa as chairperson of the board of NSFAS. I will also be further requesting the board to co-opt 2 more members, because as it stands, the board is not fully balanced from my point of view. For instance, there is a need to bring individuals with actuarial science and skills. In fact, NSFAS was designed by actuarial scientists, as well as someone with extensive social dialogue skills and experience, because many stakeholders have an interest in NSFAS. These 2 that I will engage the board to co-opt, will be announced later, because I have to continue, I have to complete that task, working with the board. And after an extensive search, I have also concurred with the decision of NSFAS to appoint Mr. Andile Nongoko as the new Chief Executive Officer of NSFAS for a period of 5 years. Thanks to NSFAS, Dr. Carlson, I know you have taken a very long time, advertised, interviewed, couldn't get anyone, started a search process. That's your decision, which I'm announcing that I'm concurring with today. On the Ministerial Advisory Committee on Infrastructure that I have spoken about, I have appointed 5 experts, chaired by Mr. Bafana Ndendwa as chairperson, and then Mr. Matapu Nhlapo, Mr. Warwick McCain's Prince, Ms. Lebule Shabane, and Ms. Nonkululeko Nchona as the 5 experts who will advise me on infrastructure for the post-school education and training system. Let me take this opportunity to congratulate all those who have been appointed in this regard. And this Ministerial Advisory Committee on Infrastructure will also have to advise the ministry on a comprehensive student accommodation strategy for the next 10 years. In conclusion, I wish to remind everybody that COVID-19 is here to stay for the foreseeable future. Of course, we are hopeful with the new vaccines that have been found that will help us. This means that, nevertheless, we must always stay alert to the changing landscape and keep on planning for months and possible years ahead. Let me take this opportunity to wish you all a happy festive season, and for Christians a Merry Christmas, and everyone a Happy New Year, and to say we're entering a silly season in the middle of COVID-19. We just have to be, we're calling upon everyone in our sector in particular, but beyond, to be really vigilant. We tend to drop our guard at this time of the year. We are all excited, and we don't want what are called super spreaders. So it's very important that we remain vigilant. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Minister, for the detailed statement. This is a testament to the fact that we do not have questions from both our WhatsApp and our telephone call line. However, we do have our colleagues here in Pretoria and in Cape Town who I would like to give an opportunity if there are any clarity-seeking questions to them. Let us start in Cape Town. Cape Town, do we have any questions? Thank you very much. Any questions in Pretoria? No questions. Matikweni, do we have questions on our WhatsApp line?
Thank you, Ishmael. There are no questions aside.
Okay, do we have Ishmael, do you have any questions on our telephone line? Minister DM, we don't have any questions. The message was well received. Thank you very much. This, therefore, ladies and gentlemen, okay. Oh, we do have one question here in Pretoria. It's an afterthought. Okay.
Thank you.
Please introduce yourself. Oh, it's Matikweni. All
yes,
right. Sure.
it's me. Thank you.
Okay.
One question just came in on the WhatsApp line. Bongekile Mangope from Mail and Guardian. They have asked the question. The minister has spoken about the good job for the administrator of NSFAS and has done at the scheme. However, Parliament has has on 2 meetings heard of allegations of maladministration, fraud, and the flouting of recruitment processes under the leadership of the administrator. In the meeting on 6 November, NSFAS employees tested before Parliament about how the administrator hired his friends and family without following recruitment processes. Allegations were also made of a person who was a staff in your office who now works at NSFAS, and that her job was discussed in your presence and that she is also part of the meeting. What is your comment on these revelations that have come out of the Portfolio Committee on Higher Education in relation to the administrator? Thank you.
Thank you very much. Any questions? That will be all. Okay. Thank you. Minister, we only have that question from Bongegile Makupe from Mail and Guardian.
Let me just say this without any fear of contradiction. Maybe repeating what is in the statement. The state at which NSFAS was 29 months ago is so vastly different to where NSFAS is now. And I want to say that without any contradiction. People with different views, they can hold their views. As minister responsible for NSFAS, it's a sea change. This year alone, we're going to be distributing just under 40 billion rands of money from NSFAS. And we've done this relatively efficiently. And many stakeholders, by the way, until just recently, when these matters that Bongegile is talking about, that the NSFAS administrator has done a great job. As minister, I want anyone to come and challenge me. There are many things that I can mention. The setting up of systems, although they are not yet complete, others have got to be done. The speed with which NSFAS is able to respond to queries, and the speed at distribution and so on. Not a perfect. Remember, by the way, NSFAS is a very complex operation, for those who may not understand. NSFAS distributes just over this year under 40 billion rand to deal with 700,000 students, more or less, involving 50 TVET colleges with 270 campuses, and 26 public universities with just under 100 campuses. It's a massive and complex operation. The improvements that I have seen are enormous. Indeed, there will always be people who have got complaints, some of whom decided to go to the Portfolio Committee. The Portfolio Committee has a right to decide how it deals with those matters, but as far as I'm concerned, most of those matters that were being dealt with in the Portfolio Committee are matters that are being dealt with through the ordinary labor relations processes. And I want to say this. Some of the people who have gone to complain to the Portfolio Committee are people who are being disciplined by NSFAS. So they are trying to find another opening. That is why Parliament also needs to be careful that it does not allow its platforms to be used by people who are being disciplined. Also, it's people, some of whom are going to be handed over to the hawks for corruption inside NSFAS. They are now trying to find another way to try and discredit the administrator in order not to be able to do. No one is an angel. We are not saying the administrator is an angel, but he has done a good job. And all the matters that they are raising are matters that can be dealt with. That is why at some stage, Bongegile, I intervened when Nehau went to Parliament. I said, you have a right to go to Parliament, but separate these matters. Which matters do you think we can deal with at NSFAS level as labor relations issues? And I will facilitate a meeting with the administrator. And of course, they met and they dealt with most of those issues. There were a few where they agreed to disagree, which always happens between employer and employees. but then said, don't allow those issues which are being opportunistically advanced in order to try and discredit the disciplinary processes at NSFAS. The other thing I want to say I reject with contempt. This idea, which by the way is often pushed by the opposition, that someone who worked as my chief of staff is not supposed to be employed anywhere in government. I mean, that's ridiculous. Yes, Sibongile Mncwabe has been employed by NSFAS. She was my chief of staff, and she went through the process of applying and being interviewed. If she deserves it, she must be employed. This thing that staff who have been working for ministers are little devils with horns in their heads, we must reject that. It's an agenda of the opposition. Why should people who work in ministries cannot be employed anywhere else, as long as the process? I never sat and discussed Sibongile's employment. That was done by NSFAS without me being involved. Anyway, she's a competent lady. She doesn't need me to be actually holding her hand. So I reject that. People who are going to be coming with these things, I want to say this. We are also going to be, we welcome whatever actions may be taken to investigate these matters if Parliament so chooses. But we also going to be coming up with the truth. Both NSFAS administration and myself as the minister, as to what is actually going on behind the scenes. Thank you very much. You want to say something, Randa? Feel free. Because I think that we must allow him also, because he has been under huge pressure. You know? Yes.
Thank you, Minister. Thank you, Deputy Minister. At least my friends at home can see I'm important. Yes, this has been a tough journey, much tougher than what I think anybody anticipated. And I think Dai that did the recruitment didn't tell me the full story, but be that as it may. But we have done a great lot of work, and there's still a lot of work to be done. And we've tried to do that with integrity, and we've tried to do that despite the powers, significant powers of the administrator. We instituted policies and procedures to make sure that those powers are not abused. So let me state at the outset, I don't have any family employed at NSFAS. Okay, I've said that in Parliament, and some journalists conveniently ignore that. All people that were appointed following a detailed process that we designed and implemented, because the process at NSFAS were outdated up till 2011. I also had received the power from Minister Blade Nzimande initially to bring on board experts, because NSFAS was denuded of experts. That's why the NSFAS collapsed. And if you read by the first annual report, I think you'll be frightened to see how close to collapse NSFAS came and the amount of money that disappeared. I would also advise journalists to become a bit more investigative and not just act on allegations. Because the tendency in this country is that allegations are slung at you and then you are expected to respond. And I'm refusing to do that anymore. If you have anything, put it on the table and I will give you the facts. And so I would urge that we become a lot more professional in the way we deal with people's reputations. My own reputation, luckily, can stand on its own. But there are people that work with me and that are very good people that are being tarnished and smeared left, right, and center. And some of us are going to take action. We are not just going to lie and be the recipients of abuse and smear campaigns. As we speak, both me and my wife are under armed protection for 24 hours. That's not right. Not while we're trying to serve the country. But be that as it may, Minister, all I can say, thank you for a wonderful opportunity. I've grown a little bit taller, but I've become considerably grayer. But it has been a wonderful opportunity to be able to serve our country. And we will deal with the corrupt elements, because that's part of my terms of reference. Because they're not stealing from me and you, they're stealing from the poor. But we are unbound, Minister, and thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Carolison. Ladies and gentlemen, this brings us to the end of our media briefing. As the Minister says, have a Merry Christmas and a prosperous New Year. The statements will be in all our social media platforms. We'll distribute them through the GCIS media group and through the Department of Higher Education and Training website as well, and through WhatsApps for those that will request them through that platform. Thank you very much once more, Minister and Deputy Minister and members of the media. Bye. Thanks, dear.